Good morning to those in China and potentially in the Korean Peninsula. I will go over this system for a bit. First, I'm going to share it, but if you have any questions and you're watching this video after it's a live stream, you can always ask the questions in the comments, and I will answer it in the next update. Of course, I'm just gonna share this stream real quick with my community. And there we go. Hello, Mackenzie. If you have any other questions about the system, you can ask them in the chat, and I will gladly answer them towards the end of the stream. This stream shouldn't be too long, but yeah, let's get right into it. So we currently have what is unofficially potential tropical cyclone Comay, which is expected to move away from the Okinawa Islands before generally moving towards Zhejiang province in eastern China, before eventually moving towards Shanghai as a tropical storm, maybe closer to typhoon status than not, before then moving further into China, before eventually trying to curve towards the east away from China. So if we take a look at the impacts over the next 5 days, now this threat is mainly rain. We have the Okinawa Islands in a marginal threat, parts of Zhejiang province, and then parts of mainly eastern China, and then going in towards, I forget what this bay is called, if it is on the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea. Now again, most of these impacts are going to be in the form of rain. Some of these impacts will be in the form of wind, in terms of tropical storm force winds. Now we do have an area of slight impacts for Zhejiang province and parts of Shanghai here. This is mainly for a combination of a wind and rain threats. There could be storm force winds in those areas, and in addition to over 100 millimeters of rainfall. And when we get those densely populated areas and very urbanized areas, that's when we can get some flash flooding. So that will be a concern in those areas. Now, if we take a look at the global view of the tropics, we can see we have an area of interest in the North Atlantic with a 20% chance of development over the next 7 days. It's going to be a tropical wave moving off of Africa. Could deliver some impacts to the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles. We have a or a disturbance in the Eastern Pacific with a 70% chance of development over the next 7 days. Should remain out to sea. We have a disturbance in the Eastern Pacific here, almost in the Central Pacific, with a 60% chance of development over the next 48 hours. And we have Tropical Storm ONC, which is now Iona, I believe is how you pronounce it, with winds of around 40 to 45 miles an hour. We have Typhoon Crosa, right here in the Western Pacific, with winds around 80 to 85 miles an hour. And we have potential tropical cyclone Comay here with an 80% chance of development over the next 48 hours and 90% chance over the next roughly 3 days or so. We are currently in code red for Comay, and we are in code yellow for Iona. And as we are in code red, we are covering Comay. Alright, now if we take a look at the satellite imagery on this potential tropical cyclone, we can see it's not doing too well now. It did have some thunderstorms covering the center, but right now it is an exposed low-level center with most of the thunderstorms off towards the east. This center will continue moving westwards, though, towards Shanghai, and then we should see some redevelopment in that thunderstorm activity. Potentially by tomorrow morning, it should be a tropical cyclone. Again, looking at infrared imagery, we can see that most of these thunderstorms are off towards the east, not over the center, and that's why we don't have it as a tropical cyclone. If we take a look at the forecast for the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and the general conditions the system will face, first let's take a look at wind shear. Right now it's in a generally low wind shear environment. It is in an upper level anticyclone right now, so it's helping minimize that wind shear that it's facing right now. So we should see thunderstorms begin to flare up over the center and sustain themselves. As you can see here, this whole environment is quite low in terms of wind shear. Now, if we take a look at the sea surface temperatures, It is still favorable around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, but around Shanghai at temperatures of down to 26 Celsius. But still, it's still favorable for development over the next few days. It's not going to be sustaining much of like a major hurricane or major typhoon or anything like that. Just maybe supports a minimal typhoon. Should be a severe tropical storm or severe tropical storm. And then if we take a look at the oceanic heat content, we can see that it is going to go over a patch of some oceanic heat content here before entering an area with little to none. And those are it doesn't really matter a whole lot because the system's moving generally quickly. It should be more taking advantage of the sea surface temperatures more than oceanic heat content. And then if we take a look at the distance of it right now, it is currently located over the Okinawa Islands, and it is roughly around 660 kilometers away from Zhejiang province and roughly around 830 kilometers away from Shanghai. And it's roughly around 900 kilometers away from South Korea and roughly 1,300 kilometers away from North Korea. Those are some places it could impact beyond the 5-day range, but as we are currently focused on the 5-day range, we're going to be focusing on the impacts in China. Now, if we take a look at the model runs, the European run does or does develop the system once again before peaking out as a tropical storm before making landfall near Shanghai and Zhejiang province. And then it pretty much dissipates. It doesn't move east. Some of the thunderstorms do move east towards North Korea, but it generally stays over China and then dissipates. Taking a look at the American run on the system, it does have it intensifying potentially to a severe tropical storm before making landfall near Shanghai, before moving over the Yellow Sea and then towards the Korean Peninsula before dissipating over the next week. If we take a look at the German model, it does have the system intensifying to a severe tropical storm before stalling over just north of Shanghai over the next 5 days or so. And then if we take a look at the Canadian run, it has the system redeveloping into a tropical storm before dissipating over mainland China. Now, if we take a look at the European ensembles on the system, generally showing the system moving over China, and then it's pretty split on if it goes out towards the Yellow Sea or if it moves west and dissipates over mainland China. As you can see here, here are the ensembles across the Western Pacific. We can see that divide noted right here. I believe if I click on Comay here, now you can pretty much see the difference displayed right over here, how they split up on where it could go. It could go further into mainland China, or it could go east and impact the Korean Peninsula. If it moves west, it will likely not deliver really any impacts to the Korean Peninsula. But yeah, overall, it should move generally over Shanghai and deliver tropical storm force winds to Shanghai. These ensembles show over a 50% chance of that happening, although this isn't that great of a tool to use. Now, if we take a look at the American ensembles on the system, it has it moving generally in towards the Yellow Sea, potentially as a typhoon. Some of those ensembles are quite low in their pressure, and then it should be gone over the next week or so. Alright, then if we look at the radar imagery of this system, we can see that most of the thunderstorms and rain shower activity is off towards the east of the Okinawa Islands, but they are going to be moving generally towards those islands over the next several hours, just because of the circulation being located right around there. You can see the broad spin, though, on the system, with all these showers circling around it. Still likely not a tropical cyclone just yet. Its center is organized enough, just not the thunderstorm activity. Then if we look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast, they do have it as a tropical storm with winds of around 35 knots. And they do quickly intensify it over the next 12 hours to around 45 knots. Let me see if this forecast has been updated. Okay, yes, they have updated it. Okay, so they still have it as a tropical storm with winds of around 35 knots, and then they gradually intensify it to 40 to 45 knots before peaking at around 50 knots, roughly almost around a severe tropical storm status before it begins to weaken, before making landfall in Zhejiang province with winds of around 45 knots, before then weakening as it nears Shanghai. Could deliver tropical storm force winds for Shanghai. Before eventually looks like it has it dissipating. Or no, it doesn't have it dissipating just yet. It still has it as a remnant low at on August 2nd. So let's take a look at the questions on this system. Mackenzie asks why Comay somehow survive in the Ryukyu Islands. Well, again, pretty much it was in a low shear environment. There wasn't a whole lot to disrupt the circulation either. So really, it's just been a pretty much a naked circulation for the past few days. Um, and now that it's over the waters and there's not a whole lot of shear, it's been given time to flare up those thunderstorms again to potentially become a tropical cyclone once again. Let's see, Ryan says, I remember when we thought Comay was going to eat Francisco and then Crosa could eat Comay. Yeah, that didn't age well. Well, I mean, the system, it did circle around one another, and Francisco is the reason why it's moving west. Otherwise, it'd be moving towards Crosa. Ryan says, if I had a nickel for every time Komai did a loop, I would have two nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Yes, that's funny. Mackenzie says that Crosa is still moving towards Japan, so let's take a look at Crosa. Crosa is currently a typhoon. It is roughly mid-range Category 1, almost high-end Category, or mid to high-end Cat 1. It could become a Cat 2, it looked like, but no, now it is forecasted to weaken some over the next few days before re-intensifying once again as it speeds off towards the northeast. Now, overall, ensembles do show this system making that little wobble towards the west before being pulled towards the northeast, and it should eventually speed off towards the northeast or north-northeast, and it should avoid Japan. Still, though, we should see some hazardous surf in those areas. Let's see if this actually shows anything with surf, or if I have to use, okay, I have to use something like the GFS run then. Look at the significant wave height here. We can see some of those waves impacting parts of, here I'm going to go to this, parts of eastern Japan, so there could be some hazardous rip currents over the next few days, especially along Tokyo. So just remember, don't be out swimming really with this kind of these kind of hazards. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Crosa. It is experiencing dry air right now, so that hasn't been great for the system. That's why it's kind of hindered its intensification a bit. The Nari effect strikes again. What's that? Storms that take a similar track to that. Okay. Mackenzie asked if Iona. It's not Lona. It's Iona with an I. It does have the possibility to become a hurricane. Yeah, and the National Hurricane Center is forecasting it to reach a peak of around 70 miles per hour over the next 36 hours or so. It does have quite a compact core, so the system could quickly intensify. I don't think that the environment's that bad for this system. I will take a look at that. Looking at the European AI run to take a look at the wind shear it's experiencing. It's not too bad, and the wind shear should start to lower over the next 36 to 48 hours. Generally just moving towards an area of cooler waters. So, I mean, yeah, it could peak out as a hurricane. That is a possibility. That would be the last hurricane since Hone of last year in that region. So, I mean, yeah, it's totally possible. And we are currently code yellow on this system, mainly just for its popularity. It is roughly around 1,200 kilometers away from Hawaii. And it is going to get only really around 900 kilometers away. Or, sorry, why am I using kilometers? I should be using miles in those areas. Generally only around 800 miles away from Hawaii, and then at its closest, it should be around 500 to 600 miles, with the edge of the cone being around 440 miles away. So still quite a ways away. Oh, and I did want to show the rainfall potential of Comay over the next 5 days or so. So if we take a look at the European run on this system, over the next 5 days or so, here's a look at the rainfall totals. Shanghai gets in at around 50 millimeters or so on this run, but areas west in parts of mainland China could get rainfall totals as high as 300 millimeters of rain. And then it doesn't show anything for parts of the Korean Peninsula just yet. If we take a look at the American run on the rainfall, it does have higher totals in Shanghai, roughly around 180 to 190 millimeters. Parts of Zhejiang province around 250 millimeters of rain. And if we take a look at the German run, higher totals as well, roughly around 110 millimeters of rain for parts of Shanghai, and maximum totals over 300 millimeters in parts of China. Let's see what this model run is, the MSM. I'm guessing this is just a higher resolution model, only goes out to 3 days. Could see maximum totals as high as 500 millimeters of rain in parts of Zhejiang province, and totals around Shanghai, roughly around 200 millimeters. Again, that's why we're in that slight threats in those areas. And if we take a look at the rainfall forecast near Hawaii, starting off with the European run over the next 5 days. Again, not really showing anything because the system will remain to the south. Generally, though, around a quarter of an inch or so, a fifth of an inch. The American run showing really around a tenth of an inch. The German run showing around half an inch. And the NAM for Hawaii generally showing around 2 inches or so in some areas. Just not really from the system itself, though. Again, it should remain to the south of the Hawaiian Islands, so not really seeing any impacts there. Mackenzie asked, Eastern Pacific starting hot again after the Western Pacific? Yes, it is going to be because of the MJO moving east. It's basically something that enhances tropical activity across the world here. If I show that to you all over here, we'll see this green pulse happen for parts of the Eastern Pacific for a bit of time, and then parts of the Atlantic for some time when the disturbance moves around the Leeward Islands and Lesser Antilles. So we could see a phase of some more development there. If we look at the European ensembles instead, again showing that pulse in the Atlantic, not a whole lot of suppressing activity. Before then we reach mid-August, and then there should be a little bit of a more quiet period. But I mean, the Western Pacific has been active. The Eastern Pacific near Hawaii has been very active there, as you can see. And then we could see some more activity near the coast of Mexico. Speaking of which, let's talk about that system next. Here's a look at the European ensembles. This is as of 18Z. It seems like they've downtrended a bit since the 12Z run. Oh, yeah, and we could see another disturbance after that as well. So just something to keep an eye on, but fortunately it should remain out to sea. And if we take a look at the European AI run, we should clearly be able to see the tropical cyclone developing over the next 4 days or so, before potentially nearing hurricane strength before moving out to sea, and we could see some more disturbances trying to develop. And you can also see that disturbance in the Gulf there, just something we'll have to watch out over the next week or so, or next 10 plus days. But yes, I mean, that is a quite interesting signal we'll have to be watching over the next 10 days or so. It does have it as a tropical cyclone. I'm quite surprised the National Hurricane Center has yet to designate it as a disturbance yet. We currently have it as around a 20% chance. But overall, hostile conditions will be impacting the system for most of the way until it gets past around 60 degrees west of longitude. Mackenzie Mackenzie says, let's see what. Yes, hands, I see that. Mackenzie says a Taiwan rainfall is insane on the European run. Yeah, if we take a look at that, that's not mainly from this system though. It's mainly from the remnants of Francisco, just the remnant moisture. We could see rainfall totals around 500 millimeters or so over parts of Taiwan. That's on the European run. If we take a look at the American run, much lower totals, around 200 millimeters, and the German run, again showing those higher totals of around 300 millimeters. And then Mackenzie asked if there's anything in the North Indian Ocean or South Indian Ocean. Let's take a look at that. The North Indian Ocean, that one disturbance there did not become a tropical cyclone, and there's not a whole lot of activity to look out for there. Not seeing a whole lot. But if we look at the Southwest Indian Ocean, there is going to be a disturbance we'll have to watch, and Zomble support has been picking up. I wouldn't be surprised if we mark this as a 10% chance over the next, or by tomorrow, over the next 7 days. Just could be an area of low pressure that tries to develop and another off-season system. Let's see. TC mentions that GFS shows a train of storms in the Eastern Pacific. Let's take a look at that. Oops. Oh yeah. Overall, though, you can see that disturbance there trying to develop in the Southwest Indian Ocean. Well, yeah. If we take a look at the Eastern Pacific here. Yes, we can certainly see those train of storms. We have the one that's the current signal we're looking out for, then the next one, which is around the week phase, then another one at around the beyond the 10-day range, and then another one in the silly range, way too far out. Oh dang, okay, people do live in parts of these islands here. Okay, so they're likely still getting impacts from crows, so around 200 millimeters of rain or so. That's north of the Northern Mariana Islands. Oh yeah, I was going to take a look at some of the extreme forecasts now over the next few days. Now, looking at temperature across, well, look at Florida. Their extremes. I'll probably make a graphic on that later. But yeah, parts of the United States are experiencing a near to record heat, mainly in the southeast over the next several days, and generally across most of the United States there. Then if we take a look towards Japan, generally warmer temperatures, same with parts of the Korean Peninsula, parts of the Philippines as well, parts of Indonesia. Parts of Turkey are experiencing a record heat wave here. And then looking at cooler anomalies, we have some pretty cold weather happening in parts of Western Australia, and then parts of Southeastern Africa. And then if we take a look at tomorrow's forecast, generally same story than the day after, day after. But if we take a look at the windy or gustiness, we could see, of course, near record winds over here from Crosa. Generally windy conditions for parts of Comay. Generally windy across the Philippines, though that's denoted in the yellow color. Mozambique Channel, quite windy near Brazil and Uruguay. Then if we take a look at the rainfall here, we can see, of course, near record rains happening southeast of Japan from Crosa. Quite wet for Taiwan today. Then towards tomorrow, the day after that as well. But it's generally dry for parts of the Philippines, parts of India there, and parts of Florida. What do that'd be 140? Well, feels like temperature. Mackenzie asks if the Atlantic will be inactive this year. it's getting more and more likely that we're not going to see as much of the activity as we initially thought. I mean, we're coming closer and closer towards peak season, not looking like an totally favorable pattern. If we take a look at this chart again, wait, what am I trying to pull up? Sorry about that. Yep, okay. Meant to pull it up on here. If we go back to the 0Z run of today, I believe. No, if we go before that, oh, it's this run. Sorry about that. It's these kind of runs. There we go. If we go to last night's run of the Atlantic Basin, generally suppressing activity in the main development region and parts of the Caribbean for mid-August. Could see a respark though in mid to late August across the Atlantic. Not a whole lot of sinking air over the region. Generally though, the Western Pacific should be more active. But yeah, you can see all that suppressing activity in the Southwest Indian Ocean, and that a lot of rising air for parts of the Eastern Pacific. Yes, I mean, I know that people say, oh, preseason activity does not equal total activity, but we are not really in, or like we're leaving early season. We're nearing the first part of peak season, August, and August doesn't look that great for development. Really, we're gonna watch this one wave from the Euro AI run here. We're going to watch this one wave for development. It should be marked by the National Hurricane Center, and we may see some more waves that try to develop. But really, we're just going to be paying our attention on this disturbance. Other than that, though, I've noticed that the GFS wants to spin up some tropical cyclones along the coast of the Carolinas. I'm not quite sure I believe in all that. Looks like a whole bunch of convective feedback, just the model not doing so great. Now, I'm not so sure about the Western Pacific and Eastern Pacific. So again, if you have any other questions as I wrap this up, just leave them in the chat and I will gladly answer. Ryan's, I don't know. I don't really do a bunch of seasonal forecast. I try to keep it within the next week or 10 to 15 days or so. Stuff like that. I don't go too far out because really it's anybody's guess. I prefer quality over quantity. Or quality over range. Anyways, time to wrap this up. Yes, and yes, the next name in the Atlantic is Dexter. So again, taking a look at the impacts over the next 5 days from Comay. Again, it's expected to become a tropical cyclone over the next 24 hours, then impact parts of Zhejiang province and parts of Shanghai over the next 3 days or so. 2 to 3 days mainly, and we could see some slight impacts in the form of rainfall and let's see, what was I going to say? Rainfall and wind threats. And then if we take a look at marginal impacts, again for the Okinawa Islands and most of eastern China. Could see some impacts in the Korean Peninsula, but it's too far out to say. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to this update. If it's still code red or so, I may do an update in around 2 days or so, maybe tomorrow or in 2 days. We'll see. I think maybe in 2 days. I'm trying to figure out how to do this, how to work this code system exactly. Code pink is when I do it every day. So probably code red every 2 days or so. and code orange maybe twice a week every 3 days, and then code yellow is mainly once a week. Well, yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next update. Stay safe.